Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Two Bros Wrestling Show. And I say welcome back because we have been off for a few weeks now. And tonight we return with a bit of a mini edition of the show. Because as you can see, when I look to the left or look to the right, I don't see Doug. So we are a one bro wrestling show this week. But don't worry, we have Doug's feedback on our main event topic tonight, which is a preview of Saturday's Crown Jewel event. It's one of the reasons that Doug insisted that we come back to air, even though he couldn't be here tonight, is that he was so super excited about Crown Jewel that he could not wait to give me his predictions that I can relay to you all. Of course, Doug is famously a big Logan Paul fan and just wanted to be sure that we previewed in his mind what will be the beginning of a very, very long Logan Paul title reign. Doug's words. Remember that, not mine. So though Doug cannot be here, I have his totally real predictions here. And just for those of you who may be concerned that there's some shenanigans without Doug being around to defend himself and in his choices, these true, absolutely real Doug predictions for Crown Jewel have been verified and certified by the Arizona Board of Elections, Ernst & Young, Ernest Goes to Camp, all of them. They have all weighed in. Just so you know, there is no funny business here, and these are actually Doug's true thoughts. He truly believes that Logan Paul is going to end the long title reign of your tribal chief. I'm not sure I agree. Fortunately, I am also going to offer my predictions for Crown Jewel, and that way we have a little bit of balance to all of this. But before we get into this main event topic of Crown Jewel, we have, for the first time in a month, an opening bell. And with that, folks, we're going to catch up a little bit on the news. And there's been quite a bit of it, obviously, since we've been out. And I will not relay every last thing that has occurred over the last month because, honestly, it would be way too much. But we do have to at least give an update on the topic that everyone was talking about when we last were on air and is continuing to talk about. And that is still AEW and the fallout from the media scrum heard around the world, as it were, right? The biggest news still continues to be all out media scrum. And we actually picked a good night to come back because timing wise, looks like we might finally have some resolution on this large news story. And that is that it appears to be we are at the end of AEW's internal investigation. In fact, that is what all the reports seem to be leaning towards, is that the formal internal investigation that AEW has been conducting is either over or soon to be closed. On this past week's Dynamite, you saw a sort of a what if style video package, which gave us the first indication that the returns of the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega are imminent. In fact, this video package that talked about the Young Bucks and were showing the Bucks and Omega is the first time that the Elite have been referenced since this whole ordeal began. Once they were suspended and everyone stripped of their respective titles, no one involved in this has been even mentioned on air. So the fact that they're mentioning them and showing their images on screen is all the indication that you need that the investigation is over and that Tony this wouldn't be happening, obviously, if Tony Khan was not satisfied with their punishments and that wasn't satisfied with the investigation and was ready to put them back on his television show. This development, though, has meant that a lot of wrestling news outlets have reached out to CM Punk's camp to get some sort of reaction from that camp on the fact that the Elite might be returning to TV and to check on the status of Punk. And of course, Punk has also been relatively quiet during this investigative period, but his camp has been not so much quiet since news broke that the Elite's return is imminent. In fact, when approached CM Punk's camp, weighed in with some news that apparently had failed to make the rumor rounds earlier, and that is that in the backstage brawl that ensued after All Out, that Larry the Dog lost 2 teeth as a result of all the mayhem. Apparently, when the Young Bucks kicked in the door, at least according to these reports, that door hit Larry, poor Larry, and then Larry ends up at a vet, and then Larry ends up having 2 teeth removed. I know it seems ridiculous, but again, folks, remember this is a story that also involves a grown man biting another grown man, and that being completely true. So did Larry the dog lose 2 teeth or not, or how was Larry involved in this? Who knows? Who truly knows? It is to be pointed out that the other side of this equation, the elite camp, I guess you could say, have pretty much called BS on the whole story of Larry the dog losing 2 teeth. It is the first time that that has ever come out. Obviously, this investigation that is concluding or has concluded didn't bring that those facts to light as new information to add to this already totally bizarre news story. But the one thing that we do know is that it is quite obvious that the elite are about to return to TV. We do know, since the last time we were here, is that Ace Steel, who was the guy who did the biting that I mentioned earlier, also a friend of CM Punk and who was working as a backstage agent at AEW. As a result of the investigation, he has lost his job. Sorry, all you Ace Steel fans out there, but yes, you will not be seeing him on television anymore, nor will he be working back behind the scenes. And that leaves Punk. Where is Punk in the end of this event investigation? Well, reports on that regard seem to be that CM Punk is working with AEW on a buyout of his contract. Now, get this. The sticking point reportedly is the length of the non-compete clause of the contract. Why is that something I'm pointing out to you? Well, think about it. Where is there for someone of CM Punk's stature with the amount of money he would require? Where is there that he could possibly work? There is only one place, and that place is a place that he spent most of the last decade slamming in every interview that he has given. I know a lot of that was geared towards Vince McMahon, who, yes, is now gone, but Triple H, who pretty much is the WWE at this point from the creative side, and who Punk would have to get along with. Triple H has not been spared over the years by CM Punk's comments. Now, there are insiders that say Triple H has indicated that he would be willing to do business with CM Punk if that business was right for both sides. But I think it is a stretch to think of CM Punk returning to WWE, but this is the wrestling business. So never say never to the fact that you may see CM Punk one day in WWE if the money is right and the situation is right. But from Triple H's standpoint, you'd have to consider the fact that not only does CM Punk have a history with the WWE, he is just recently coming off one of the largest scandals in wrestling over the last few years, and is kind of damaged goods and toxic to your locker room environment. So all of that would have to be considered before Triple H would actually make an offer to CM Punk. But again, if it is true that the sticking point right now to a CM Punk buyout is actually a non-compete clause, the only place there is for CM Punk to go would be back to WWE. So stay tuned, and we will keep following this as it develops. But it looks like we might finally have closure on the big media scrum heard around the world. Other big news since we've been out, and that is the continued return of talent to Vince McMahon's former stomping grounds, Titan Towers, Stephanie McMahon, and Triple H's kingdom now. But they continue to undo much of what Vince had done in letting so many folks go over the last couple of years. The big return, of course, since we've last been on our air with you all, is that Bray Wyatt has come back. And Wyatt return has not only been newsworthy, it was rumored, of course, and expected, of course, but part of why it has been such a big deal is not only do you have a name such as Bray Wyatt back in your main event scene, automatically back in your main event scene, they've brought him back with an angle that has been so engaging. And if you want evidence of how out of touch Vince McMahon had gotten, or how much Triple H's actions since he has taken over have been a direct repudiation uh, of what Vince had done, you'd look no farther than Bray Wyatt's return, because in the short amount of time that he has been back, we now know that Bray Wyatt is the top merchandise seller for WWE, supplanting even the Bloodline, who have now dropped to number 2. Bray Wyatt is money. Vince McMahon did not see that Bray Wyatt was money. Triple H obviously knew what he had and has brought him back in a very, very entertaining fashion. And so welcome back, Bray Wyatt. But Bray Wyatt is not the only one since we've last been on our air with you who've come back. But obviously we've seen the Good Brothers return. We've seen Braun Strowman return. Just this past week, we saw the return of Tenille Dashwood back to her WWE moniker of Emma. And also vignettes are showing that Sarah Logan's not far behind, and reports are that Chelsea Green is not far behind. So a lot of movement going back into WWE. WWE, however, are not the only ones doing hiring. AEW has done some hiring of its own since we've last spoken with you all, and that hiring on the AEW side includes Josh the Good Woods. And I know Josh has been on the air, but apparently he had been working on a per appearance contract, but apparently he has now been signed to a contract. It would be reasonable to presume it's more of a Ring of Honor contract, even though those lines between Ring of Honor and AEW are pretty blurred right now. And then, of course, the same goes for the Kingdom, who have recently made their debut on AEW television. And, Maria Kanellis and crew are in the fold, back in Ring of Honor, even if it's a different type of Ring of Honor now that we have new ownership and a much larger platform for them. But those are some of the big signings to AEW. Of course, when you look at this in totality, we're talking here just, the folks we've just mentioned, the Kingdom, the Good Brothers, Chelsea Green, Tenille Dashwood. These are all folks that are signing with one of the big two and leaving Impact, and all at once. So that is a large amount of talent that is going to be walking out the door, or has walked out the door in a relatively short time frame. So that is going to be something that we'll definitely want to monitor, and that is the effect on Impact Wrestling of all these large signings with AEW or WWE. Another bit of news. A few months ago, we reported here on the Two Bros Wrestling Show about Hulu no longer being the next day streaming rights site for WWE programming. And that originally was supposed to take place more than a month ago. And then they came to a last minute deal to continue that for a short period of time. And if you have Hulu and watch any of the WWE programming on Hulu, you have noticed that there is a ending by effective date that is showing up when you look up any WWE broadcasts. However, even though everything was supposed to officially be off, this time they really mean it. Last Friday, to date, the WWE programming is still there, and now the end date is no longer showing up. They have not struck a deal, or at least not one that is yet to be made public. So it would seem that there's a game of chicken going on here, and that Hulu doesn't really want to take away the WWE programming. They probably just want to come and solidify a deal with WWE, but those terms obviously have not yet been reached, even though the programming still lingers out there. And this is definitely something to keep an eye on, because streaming is probably the future of WWE, and it's complicated by the fact that Fox has SmackDown. Otherwise, it would be a simple solution in that all the NBC Universal programming could go on to Peacock. But because Fox has its own separate relationship with Hulu, which has next day airing rights, SmackDown will air the day following it airing live on Fox itself. So again, let's keep an eye on this, and we'll continue to let you know where WWE programming can be found if in fact it ever does leave Hulu. And then as far as news goes, I'm going to end with some pay-per-view news. And that's apparently that Hell in a Cell is no more, at least as an annual pay-per-view. You'll still see Hell in a Cell matches, but after 12 years, the pay-per-view event, which was originally this year's edition, was going to be in December. It's been canceled. And this is aligning with the belief that a lot of folks have that Triple H is not a fan of these gimmick pay-per-views that overexposes the gimmick matches that WWE has worked hard to establish over the years. And if that, in fact, is why Hell in a Cell is being canceled, count me in. I am in complete agreement that Hell in a Cell is one of those things that means more when it's used less. So use it sparingly. Use it only when the circumstances call for a Hell in a Cell match, a blood feud type thing, a end of the line. We've tried everything. Nothing else has helped these two women settle their differences. So now we're going to go to Hell in a Cell. Not just because it's a certain date on a calendar and it's time to throw a couple of Hell in a Cell matches on a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. So that's a good call by Triple H, and one that is one of the many welcome additions, I would say, that Triple H has made to WWE programming. And with that, folks, that's the news. That's the opening bell. It's time for our main event. And again, I know we've teased and I know we've headlined with Doug thinking that Logan Paul is going to be your new world champion after Crown Jewel. So let's talk Crown Jewel, right? Some previews and some predictions here, not just from Doug, who again, for those that are in the comments saying that maybe this isn't Doug, would it be in crayon if it wasn't really Doug's true thoughts? That's all the proof that you need right there. So before I get started, I will say that Doug made sure to point out that Crown Jewel is his favorite event in all of WWE, his favorite premium live event. As he put it here in his notes to me, it is like WrestleMania without all the human rights. That's really a controversial take. I'm not sure. I don't agree with that. But then again, these are Doug's thoughts, not necessarily mine. So again, I'll give you some balance here. We know how we're ending on this with supposedly Doug, thinking it's going to be a Logan Paul victory, but Logan Paul going over is far from the only controversial hot take Doug has on the upcoming card that we're going to see for All Out. So I'm sorry, All Out. Listen to me. For Crown Jewel. So let's just go through the matches one by one, and I will give you Doug's prediction, and I will let you know if I think he's going to be right or wrong, and you in the comments can let us know what you think about some of these. So before we get into the matches that have officially been announced, let's talk about one that probably will be announced on Monday, has not yet been made official, but that is a United States Championship match. It looks pretty obvious that we're heading towards some type of showdown where Seth Rollins puts that championship up against, well, it could be a number of folks, right? So the prediction here is going to be that we'll see a multi-person match, at least for Crown Jewel. Everyone right now is gunning for Rollins. He's made a lot of enemies. So put all those enemies in one match, have a multi-person contest so that at the end of the day, you can have another contest one-on-one down the road. I think that's what they'll do here. Seth Rollins is likely to be taking on Matt Riddle, Mustafa Ali, and Elias. Now, I don't think that Seth Rollins is going to lose his championship here. I think there's money down the road in one of those individuals as his opponent in a one-on-one contest, probably coming up later in the month when we hit the larger event of Survivor Series. But for me, Seth Rollins is retaining. For Doug has predicted an Elias victory. He thinks that Elias is going to take the title. In his words here, he's rooting for Elias because he's a big fan of his brothers, which for Doug, that does make some sense. And also he thinks that Elias is going to win because Elias only has one name, and two names are too hard to remember. So I can't say that I agree with Doug's thoughts there, but apparently Doug does not like that Matt Riddle and Mustafa Ali have both got their full names back. But hey, he is correct. Elias is still just one name. So using that rationale, Doug predicts Elias, but I'm going with Seth Rollins retaining as your champion, and that they're very likely going to see Rollins versus Matt Riddle at Survivor Series, because I think when Rollins does drop the United States Championship, it just makes sense with the momentum that Matt Riddle has behind him now. It's going to be to Matt Riddle and a big singles title win to help further elevate Matt Riddle to the upper parts of the card. Now let's look at the matches that we do know are going to happen. I'll start with the one that was added just recently. If you've not yet heard, it was reported on SmackDown about a Raw contest, the Raw Women's Championship, and Bianca Belair is going to defend that title against Bayley. And this being a newer match, I don't know if Doug just there wasn't enough time for him to think about it. He predicted Britt Baker was going to win, which obviously that can't happen for a lot of reasons. One, Doug, she's not in the match. Two, she's not even in WWE. I'm going to just take that as the AEW on Doug's brain most of the time. So for me, this one is going to be maybe the opportunity to change a title in Saudi Arabia. I know they try here lately to make these events feel more than a glorified house show, to actually have some consequence, and this might be an opportunity. I know that Bayley's return has now been all pretty much based and centered around taking her faction and situating Becky in I'm sorry, back at you here. Creative Control, putting them up against Bianca in a way that is putting Bianca's title and her title reign in jeopardy. So as she's continued to come out on top or thwart their plans, Bayley now in a one-on-one contest, she's found her shoulders to the mat a time or two in tag matches. Her underlings have found themselves pinned. So now we have the one-on-one contest. To my knowledge, Creative Control are not banned from ringside. So obviously they will get involved. And if they do and are not banned, I think that there's a pretty good chance that you might see a title switch here. And I'm actually fine with that. I think that Bayley obviously has held the title before. She's been a world champion before. She's a main eventer. Bianca's had it for a while, and there might be some more money down the road in Bianca, in a chase for Bianca to get her title back. So yeah, that's the way I'm going with that one, and definitely not Britt Baker. We'll just ignore that one from Doug. The Undisputed Tag Team Championship, that's what we'll go with next. These are still combined titles at this moment, and that is going to be the Usos taking on the Brawling Brutes, Butch and Ridge Holland. Doug here says that not only is Logan Paul going over in the main event, that this is the start of the fall of the entire bloodline. So Doug says the bloodline angle is finally coming to an end, and that Butch and Ridge are the two to kick this off. So I am going to disagree with Doug again. I know, surprise. I think obviously the Usos will maintain. I don't think that the Brawling Brutes at this point in time are at the same level. And I do think that he is right that we are going to see the bloodline unravel, and we're starting to see the seeds planted in that. But Sami Zayn is obviously going to be at the center of the next chapter in the bloodline story. So I don't think that the Brawling Brutes are going to be anything more than a really good match for the Usos. And I do think it'll be a good and entertaining match, but Usos retain. Next match we have is Drew McIntyre versus Karrion Kross in a steel cage match. So, okay, Doug says that Drew will win, which, okay, but the way he says is that Drew will win when Jeff Hardy returns to WWE and gets his long simmering revenge on Kross with a swanton from the top of the cage. He further predicts that Karrion Kross will return to his gladiator outfit after the loss, and that Scarlett will leave television and pursue her recording career. So I mean, maybe all that happens in Doug's alternate universe, but I'm not sure we're going to see a Jeff Hardy return. And please, please, God, let's not see a return of Karrion Kross to his gladiator outfit or not having Scarlett as part of the act. I'm not sure he's wrong, though, about maybe Drew going over, but in my mind, I don't see most of that happening. I think that Drew needs some wins for sure, but I think at this stage, Cross needs them more. And I think Triple H, unlike Vince McMahon before him, sees all that potential in Karrion Kross. The reason he brought him back, and the reason he brought him back to the character as it was on NXT, and that includes no gladiator outfit and with Scarlett. I think that those are the wild card factors here. Scarlett somehow maybe getting involved. Drew has been Teflon, and good for him for being such a good soldier. But I think that this might be one that maybe Karrion needs just a tad bit more. And I'm going with Karrion Kross for your victory in that steel cage match. So Omos is taking on Braun Strowman, and Doug didn't actually give me a prediction as a winner here, but what he did say in his notes is that as a large, unathletic man myself, this is the match I am most looking forward to on the card. So Doug says that this is one where everybody wins. I know we're fond of saying that in some matches when we do these predictions that everybody wins. I'm not sure I'd put it that way for this one. But hey, maybe for me, this match surprises us all. And I admit that when I have a pretty low bar set for what this one might end up looking like, maybe it surpasses that. But a returning Strowman has to go over here. I haven't seen much to indicate that Triple H and the new regime on creative has a whole lot of plans for Omos in the way that Vince McMahon seemed to have. It seems like Omos has been featured much less regularly and not as strongly. But here lately, they have obviously been trying to build him up just to get him ready for this Braun Strowman match. And Braun Strowman has been brought back by Triple H for a reason, and it was not to lose on his first premium live event coming from Saudi Arabia. So this is the one to keep the crowd happy, and Braun Strowman is going to go over and be your victor here. Next, we have Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley. So for this one, Doug made a point to say that he doesn't believe Lesnar should wrestle anyone other than Roman Reigns. I mean, they do have really good chemistry together, and their best match may have been their last match there at WrestleMania. But we've seen a lot of these two. Actually, not at WrestleMania, but the rematch from WrestleMania. Again, we've seen a lot of these two. They've wrestled each other quite a bit. I actually was pleasantly surprised to see Brock Lesnar return in something other than a return to take on Roman Reigns. And to do so against someone we've not really seen him interact with to the point that we would feel it's overexposed or that any of us are tired of it. The times that he has been in the ring with Bobby Lashley, they have put on some pretty good contests together. So I think that this in a one-on-one might actually be one of the matches I'm most looking forward to on Crown Jewel. And this is one of the ones I think that might surpass people's expectations for it. And I think that Lesnar has to win this one just because he's had so many pop-in appearances. And we all know at this point, and most fans realize the fact that when Brock Lesnar comes back, he's not sticking around. He's coming back for short runs or special events. We all know Crown Jewel pays a lot of money, and so just appearing on the card means you're getting a big payday. That's why Lesnar's there. But typically when Lesnar comes back, he loses, and most often it's been to Roman Reigns lately. So I do think that Lesnar needs this win more so than Bobby Lashley does. So either we get a no contest of some sort where they can continue this feud and get more money out of it, or Brock Lesnar finally wins on pay-per-view for the first time in a while. And I think that that's the way that they'll probably likely go with that. Next on the card, we have the OC, the newly reformed OC, thanks to the brothers returning back the WWE fold, they are taking on arguably the hottest faction that WWE has at the moment, and that is the Judgment Day. See what Doug says here about this. If he's got a prediction for this one. And again, it's somewhat troubling, but Doug says that Judgment Day will win this one because Dom is my favorite Guerrero. Okay. So Doug and I finally agree on a winner here, but not for the same reasons. I do think that Judgment Day will win because Judgment Day is a new faction, and I think that AJ and the Good Brothers can take the loss, and they're still cool. They don't need titles. They don't even need victories to be, the OC, right? And I think Judgment Day needs more momentum behind it. And we're still really early on in Dom's heel turn. And I think that in order to keep that momentum going in the right direction that they want for Judgment Day, that they have to pick up the victory here. You can make an argument that it can go the other way and the Judgment Day isn't going to be hurt by it. But I think that I would argue that there's more damage to be done at this stage of Dom's heel turn and the Judgment Day faction not looking fully dominant. And so I think that somehow by hook or crook, the Judgment Day goes over here, and not because Dom is Doug's favorite Guerrero. Main event time, and that is obviously one that we don't need to read Doug's prediction because we've teased this whole show and getting you to tune in based on the fact that Doug thinks that Logan Paul is going to be the one to end Roman Reigns' title reign. So I guess before I give you my prediction, the fair thing to do would be give some of Doug's rationale. Let's see what he says here. So even though there's no suspense, obviously, in what Doug says. All right. Well, so Doug says that he believes that Roman has held the belt for a long enough time and that the title needs to be passed to someone that it will help by making them a star. And that Logan Paul makes the most sense for this because Logan Paul can bring more outside eyes to the product. And this will get us to the family match at WrestleMania that everyone has been talking about. So if you're as confused by that as I am, folks, yes, there has been a match that everyone presumes is going to happen at WrestleMania, and that is the big dream match that's still in the can, that's been teased for a while now, and that is The Rock versus Roman Reigns. Now, Doug says that match, he does mention that The Rock versus Roman Reigns doesn't need the title on the line to be a big match. I agree. Actually, I agree with that. But the family feud at Mania that Doug is referencing is a match between the Paul brothers for the World Championship. I don't think that has quite the cachet to it that Roman versus Rock has. So I don't think that's quite the dream match, at least in my mind. Maybe in Doug's mind, that is the where we're headed with this, and a match that he and maybe others want to see. I don't know. Okay, well, first of all, RuPaul is not Aaron Paul's brother, so he's got that wrong. Listen, I don't know what to say. Yes, I will agree with Doug in that maybe Paul has shown some surprising athleticism. And yes, Paul as a character genuinely generates heel heat. I mean, no one likes the guy legitimately. And that, the worst thing fans can do is sit on their hands and do nothing. When he is out there, he gets chants, he gets boos. The fact that he is in a main event is surprising, but then again, this is Crown Jewel, and it is an event that, even though they have done a lot to try to improve it over the last several iterations of this, it has at times always been treated almost like an afterthought or a glorified house show. So the fact that Logan Paul would take a big payday and maybe get eyes on the product, as Doug said, in order for to get some attention to this particular Crown Jewel event, it doesn't mean that this is going to be a match that any of us should take overly seriously. I'll give WWE a lot of credit for this. That if this is the direction they're going, at least they have positioned it where they're not trying to make it seem as if Paul is on equal footing with Roman. It's the, hey, he has a fighter's chance. Anyone can land a lucky punch. They've made it pretty clear that they're not treating them as equals and that Paul is the decided underdog in this encounter. And I think that, in fact, not only do I disagree with Doug that Roman Reigns' title reign continues past Crown Jewel, I will even go so far to say is that I would be surprised if Paul's championship opportunity even main events this show, to be perfectly honest with you. Would not surprise me a bit if this comes on early in the pay-per-view event. If it is in the main event, it will be relatively short. It'll be a lot of Roman Reigns dominance. It'll be Paul running around, trying to wear Roman out, and maybe then getting in a few punches to give in some sort of false hope that maybe he does stand a chance, but then be quickly put down by your tribal chief, who, yes, Doug, I'm afraid, I know you're a big Logan Paul fan, and apparently a RuPaul fan, but I do believe that he is going to be going down to your tribal chief. That is my prediction, that happens. And if this is in the main event slot, to make it even more entertaining, it would not surprise me if they use this opportunity and the platform of Crown Jewel to actually elevate Roman's next opponent, whomever that challenger may be, might make himself visible and challenge the tribal chief to something down the road, Survivor Series or later, because hey, Roman don't work every day anymore, and that includes every pay-per-view, but he's not going to miss out on that Saudi money, and he is going to collect it here for some pretty easy work. And with that, folks, that is Crown Jewel. That is what we have right now as far as the match card. It is very possible that with Raw and SmackDown this week, we might get one or two more matches, but that seems like a nice, tight, and enough for a pay-per-view that comes on middle of the day. Remember, this is emanating from Saudi Arabia, so don't forget, folks, if you are watching it next Saturday, you'll be watching it on Saturday afternoon. So set your clock accordingly. And with that, we'll go to the big finish. I'm going to start with the botch of the week. Can we just go ahead and say Larry's teeth? Like, I'm sorry, poor Larry got involved in this whole mess with AEW and the backstage brawl that was. I am extremely happy, and all wrestling fans should be happy, to have the Elite and the Young Bucks getting ready to come back to television. And regardless of what you think about either of those acts, or even if you're excited about seeing any of these gentlemen come back, we all should be happy that this whole ordeal is about to be put behind us. So while it still dominates our news cycle, it's got to be a botch. And the new news this week apparently is that CM Punk, or CM Punk's camp at the very least, has made allegations that Larry the Dog was now injured in this fight. So it's just one more thing to keep this a story. And hopefully it all gets behind us soon. CM Punk gets his buyout. The Elite and Kenny Omega return to our TV screens and are actually put on their better behavior, act like actual executive vice presidents and not like spoiled children. And then we can all move past this really nasty turn in AEW's history and just a bad look for all of wrestling. So that is my botch of the week. My match of the week. Match of the week, there was a lot to recommend this week, but I am actually going to, since we've not been on air for a bit, I'm going to backtrack. And I'm going to actually go back to last Saturday. So technically 8 days. It didn't happen this week. But if you missed NXT's Halloween Havoc, tomorrow's Halloween, so you can still celebrate while watching. And if you don't know any of the results, even better. But even if you do, you need to go back at the very least and watch. In my mind, the match that was one of the better on the show is Cora Jade versus Roxanne. I thought that they told a great story moving through this match. Roxanne is one of the youngest talents currently on air in NXT. Cora Jade is someone that we have championed on our program for a long time now as being the next Paige in a lot of ways. There's a huge upside to Cora Jade, who is just a master at her character and is getting even better in the ring and was already good. These two women have told a great story of their friendship and their tag team partnership before that even unfolding, and they lost their titles, they've lost their friendships. It's now become heated and a blood feud, and they had what was a fantastic weapons match and a blow off match, and great work by both women involved. So go out of your way to check that one out. And then finally, for my performer of the week, I'm going to go Triple H. And I know we've given Triple H a lot of credit, and the wrestling community, particularly the internet wrestling community, has given Triple H a lot of love for everything that has happened under his leadership since he took over for Vince McMahon in the late spring, early summer. I know we say a lot, and we mentioned even earlier about the people that he's brought back. I don't know that we've said enough yet about the restoration of people's characters that he has also done. And that is something that I wanted to point out this week, is that let's give him credit for trying to undo some of the damage that was done to individuals' characters by bringing them back. We have Nikki Cross, who is now back as Nikki Cross. No more superhero identity that and goofiness she's hiding behind. We recently saw LA Knight rescued from the Maximum Male Models gimmick to become the LA Knight that people loved in NXT, and then, even though under a different name, the same character before that in Impact. It's the reason why Knight is on the roster to begin with, not to be whatever they were hoping he would be as just a spokesperson for Maximum Male Models. He needs to be in the ring. He needs to be that cocky character. And kudos to Triple H for realizing that, in addition to bringing back folks that should not have been let go to begin with, that there's also value in taking people back to their characters that they were stronger in before Vince McMahon meddled in them. And I mean, that would include even like, a Butch, for example, that yes, he still has the name, and I wish that wasn't the case, but at least he doesn't have the Little Rascals look anymore. So there's a lot of things even around the edges, not just the names, but a lot of things that Triple H is doing to try to restore some of the character damage that had been done by Vince McMahon. And for that, Triple H is my performer of the week. Thanks, Trips. And with that, folks, that is the Two Bros Wrestling Show for this week. Appreciate your support. Appreciate you following us and watching, especially after we had been off for much of the last month. But we are back for a string of shows that'll take us through the fall and up until our next break around the holidays. You can see on our scroll there some upcoming broadcasts. We have a lot in the world of pay-per-view and premium live events to discuss over the next month. So stay tuned for that as we give you all the previews, all of the reviews, and that includes next Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Facebook. And then, of course, you can watch us on demand on both our Facebook channel and our YouTube channels. And so please tune in. Next week, we will be talking Crown Jewel, and we'll see how many of Doug's predictions came true. And if Logan Paul is your world champion, I will give a public apology to Doug here and to the world, I suppose. But I think that there'll be other apologies that need to be given if that ends up being the case. So with that, please tune in again next week. Thank you for joining us. This is Kevin for the Two Bros Wrestling Show. And for Doug and his true, real thoughts, I say, have a good week, everybody.